Well, what I did at the conference was I gave a talk on a couple of pieces of videotape that I've shot over the years, and many people who have seen the videotape believe it could be the image of a light-colored Sasquatch creature.
The Dover Demon case. That case in April of 1977, when 4 individuals over the space of 21 hours saw this creature.
Out of Boston, there started to be these weird clown reports where people dressed up as clowns were abducting children, were attacking people on the streets, were causing all this mayhem all over the city.
USOs do things that aircraft can't. They're something that were held out at arm's length, like they really couldn't possibly exist. But they do.
This same explanation has been popping up ever since 1947 after Ken Arnold. It's some kind of a secret military aircraft being developed by the government. The thing is they never ever come to fruition. Those secret military aircraft 60 years ago, we should know about them by now.
And I'm hoping here that for the first time here in Massachusetts to give the people just a good overview of this enduring mystery.
That was the other thing I wanted to ask you. What do you think about the Red Sox? How's it going to turn out?
Well, I think it's going to be a hard series, but at the end, the Red Sox will come through.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Binnall of America Audio with your host, Tim Binnall.
Hello there, my friends. This is Tim Binnall of BinnallofAmerica.com with another edition of BOA Audio Season 3. It is November 17th, 2007, and this week we have literally a very special episode for you. It is our first theme episode of the season. As we covered at BOA in early October, I was lucky enough to be in attendance at the Mass UFO Show / Mass Monster Mash, which is essentially the biggest paranormal conference in the New England area. We covered it in depth in text form at the BOA website, but of course what you're here for is the audio interviews that we captured on site during the big esoteric double bill. So we're going to keep the intro short and sweet this week. Here's the rundown of guests in order: Lauren Coleman, Chris Balzano, Don Keating, Carl Feint, Don Ledger, and Chris Stiles. We'll have little intros for each of the guests, but we're going to eschew the normal biographies that we usually do at the beginning of the program. You can find all the great bio information on the guests at their appropriate websites, so we'll be plugging their websites throughout the show. With the exception of the Don Keating portion of the program, these interviews were recorded over the weekend of October 12th and 13th on location at the Mass UFO Show / Mass Monster Mash. So without any further ado, let's rock and roll. We're going to kick it off here first with Lauren Coleman, talking about the Dover Demon case, the Bridgewater Triangle, the Virginia Tech shootings, and tons more. It is the Mass UFO Show / Mass Monster Mash special on BOA Audio Season 3. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here on location at the Mass UFO Show / Mass Monster Mash. We're on the first night here. Lauren Coleman's here. I've been hanging out with him for the afternoon. I don't know, Lauren, let's start out. What are you here to present at the Mass Monster Mash?
Well, I'm going to be here to present just specifically on the Dover Demon case. That case in April of 1977, when 4 individuals over the space of 21 hours saw this creature from who knows where.
Sounds exciting. How about a little update? We had you on the show about a year and a half ago at this point, April of 05 or something like that. How about a little update? What's going on in the Bigfoot world in the last year or so? How's it look? Is it promising? Is it unpromising? I've seen some various type video rumors going on, but you never know with that kind of thing. But give us a little update on the Bigfoot scene.
Well, I think at that time there was a lot of interest coming out of Malaysia, and that's really died down quite a bit. There was a hoax over there that really kind of put to rest a lot of interest. But what's occurred since then is there's been many reports from Native American reservations out west, and that's got people excited because what's occurred is the tribal police have actually done some thermal imaging of the Bigfoot, and they're trying to convert that to ways in which we can analyze it a little bit more. So we're excited by that.
No, oh yeah, I did a little. I was telling you about how I did a little investigation into the Bridgewater Triangle, and you're kind of credited with naming the Bridgewater Triangle. So talk about the Bridgewater Triangle, what it is, and sort of how you came upon the whole thing and sort of put it all together and crystallized it as the Bridgewater Triangle.
Well, I grew up in the Midwest, and when I was there and writing my book Mysterious America in the early 70s, I started noticing that there's certain places that have specific names that both the locals, either the natives or the colonial type people, would name because it was sinister. And it's often the devil names and Fortean places was the title of my article. Then I moved to New England in 1975. And what I discovered was there's this concentrated area in southeast Massachusetts around the Bridgewaters that had a lot of reports. And so I actually saw that there were 3 Bridgewaters there. There's the east, west, and Bridgewater, and I saw it was a natural triangle. But what really was happening was there's an extended area, 200 square mile area, that forms a triangle. So I started calling it the Bridgewater Triangle. And there were all kinds of reports, UFO reports, missing people reports, strange crimes, Black Panthers, Bigfoot, giant snakes from the CCC days. And I really decided that by using the name the Bridgewater Triangle, people could start associating all of this phenomena with one area and then be able to talk to me in a clearer fashion. So the word actually helped. And then I wrote an article for Boston Magazine and did some lectures in different areas, and it just kind of stuck.
There you go, there you go. Maybe talk a little bit about the Dover Demon for people who don't know what it is and that kind of thing. So we'll sort of catch them up on that.
Well, the Dover Demon was seen in April 77, as I mentioned. And what occurred was this individual in his car with some buddies was driving along Farm Street, and all of a sudden along this stone fence, he noticed a creature that was about 4 feet tall, except it was down on all fours. It had long, spindly fingers, very thin body, no mouth, and just 2 huge glowing orange eyes. And this guy had a photographic memory. He's now today, some 30 years later, he's a well-known artist around the area. But he went home immediately that night. He was, just a teenager, and he painted and he drew this thing because he was obsessed with it, almost a Close Encounters of the Third kind of an obsession. And what occurred later that night, another individual 1.1 mile away was in another part of Dover, and they saw this thing walking down the road, and they thought it was a high school buddy with a large head. So he kept yelling out, "Hey, MJ, is that you?" And it wasn't him. The creature actually ran away, went into a gully, then went up and leaned against a tree, and its glowing eyes were looking out at it. He went home and did a drawing too. These guys didn't know each other, had the sighting, and then a few hours later, a couple in a car saw a thing crossing a road with also this kind of figure 8 head. And what was different about this is the woman in that instant said that the glowing eyes was green and not orange. What happened was a couple days later, I noticed at the Dover Country Store that there was this drawing that this woman that was working there was looking at, and I said, "What's that about?" She knew that I'd written a book and was interested in Creatures of the Outer Edge was the book that I had written. And so she gave me the name of the person, and I went. And what happened is I very quickly interviewed all the principals, found that they hadn't contaminated each other by talking to each other yet. And yet I wanted to do another round of interviews, and so I got in Walter Webb and some MUFON people who had expertise in interviewing from UFO area, because there aren't that many cryptozoologists around the block, Yet I wanted people that were open to something that was unusual and something that was, needed some in-depth interviews. Because what we did, we interviewed teachers, parents, police officers, everybody in the community in a wider circle from those individual eyewitnesses to get some credibility checks on those 4 witnesses. And we really built up a rather large case file on something that didn't seem to be connected to anything. We really couldn't. There were no UFOs involved. There was no, cattle mutilations. There was nothing that we might see in other cryptozoological or ufological or paranormal or hauntings. It just seemed the Dover Demon showed up. I also came up with the name Dover Demon to give it a file name, and I like alliteration, so all of that. And so that name also has stuck. It's stuck so well, the update really is that in Japan they make little figures of the Dover Demon. This artist, one of the eyewitnesses, Bill Bartlett, is now, he's shown art in some of the galleries and institutions around the Boston area. And he, in fact, really can't figure out what the Dover Demon was. And he sometimes gets upset because why do people remember me for the Dover Demon when, in fact, I want to be much more known for my art. So that's kind of the update.
Nice. Now, was this just like a one-time type of thing, one isolated incident? Did it turn into any kind of wave, or have you ever seen anything like this coming from anywhere else? Have you someone comes to you and they're like, you got to hear about the Tallahassee Demon? It's the that kind of thing, or is it like a one-off type of incident?
It seems to be a one-time incident. The original witness a year later had an incident where he was making out with a girlfriend, and he thought he saw the Dover Demon out of his peripheral vision, but he very quickly said to himself, that wasn't the Dover Demon. There's some people in the UFO field that have tried to associate this with a fake film, a fake photograph from Chile. There's some people that said it's related to the chupacabra. It's not like it at all. Other individuals have tried to associate with mer beings. So there's always people coming along saying the Dover Demon fits here or it fits there. And I still see it as really extremely separate, very unique, and has no connection with anything else.
Okay, all right. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about is we had you, like I said, we had you on the show, and we talked a lot about the copycat effect. I'm a huge fan of the book, and I'm really interested in that other aspect of your work. Everyone, you're a cryptozoology superstar, but I also follow your work in the other realm, in the suicide cluster realm, and that kind of thing. And we had talked about a year and a half ago, right? I don't know if it was after that. No, it was about last year. So it was about a year later was the Virginia Tech shooting, and I sort of noticed that there seemed to be sort of a dangerous new trend that came up now with the guy who shot all the people in Virginia Tech, sending the videos and stuff after he had died, or right before he went on the shooting spree. And from what I can recall from your blog, Copycat Effect, was that you thought that was kind of a dangerous thing for them to be showing that on TV, and you don't want to sort of start this new trend of shooters, trying to leave their mark or make some kind of crazy statement. They think they're going to become famous through doing this, that kind of thing. I guess just talk a little bit about the Virginia Tech shooting and that whole callback situation that happened after the fact.
Well, I think what's intriguing to me about the whole Virginia Tech is that, in fact, if you look at the fall of 2005, there were between 6 and 9 shootings that came to the attention of the media. So what I started finding is that there's this trend that happens. If there's shootings in the fall, you're going to have a hot spring. So what I did was I predicted the Virginia Tech shooting down to the week. I said it was probably going to be somebody that was really outside of the norm, not a Caucasian, somebody that would actually pick that week, the Columbine week, and here we had it happen. So there were several things going on, and then, as you say, in my blog, The Copycat Effect, I really challenged NBC News for what they did. Here they gave a platform. This kid wanted to shoot up people, and he wanted to live after he killed himself. And he was able to do it by producing videos and becoming a media star after he died. And I thought it was irresponsible. I thought it feeds right into the copycat effect. After Virginia Tech, what happens because of all the grieving, you're not going to get an immediate effect right then. But I think we're already seeing it now in the fall of 2007. The Cleveland shooting. Here is an individual who was a little separate from the culture, a Caucasian male in an African-American school, goth, Columbine style. there's absolutely nothing wrong with goth people. And I think I've been very clear in my writings about that. But what's happened, there's now a subculture of goth individuals that are the Columbine death cult. And they are definitely copycats of the original Columbine, down to the trench coat, down to the black fingernail polish, down to speaking, German, and all of those kinds of things are there.
Now, last I heard, last spring, you had re-released Mysterious America, updated, expanded, all that good stuff. Now here it is October. What's coming up on the horizon for you? What do you have that people can pick up, and what are you looking forward to in the near and distant future?
Well, there's always books inside of me, and I need to write more books. So it's there's different things on the horizon. For instance, I figure right now my Tom Slick book is under a movie option. So I'm always hopeful in 3 years or 5 years Hollywood will make the Tom Slick Yeti movie. I'm also going to redo the Mothman book and make it much more evil, because I think there's a sinister evil underpinning that is not just cryptozoological, and people need to look at that. So the Mothman Death Curse really was something that I researched after my Mothman book in 2002, so I'm really revamping the whole Mothman book. I know that there's no movie coming out, but I think that there's always going to be interest in the Mothman now. And there's other little projects on the horizon, so it's just always something's happening.
Awesome. And people can follow your stuff at cryptomundo.com, correct?
Definitely. Cryptomundo.com. And we just, I guess, heard this week that we're the #1 cryptozoology site in the world with over 200 million hits per month.
That's not too hard to believe, because it's the best cryptozoological website out there. So I check it out every day. So I highly recommend people check it out. I'm sure they are. If they're listening to me and Lauren Coleman talk, they know about Cryptomundo. So hey, Lauren, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me here, and let me drag you outside to do the interview. I had a great time talking to you. Good luck with the presentation. I'm looking forward to seeing you here, and go Red Sox. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to ask you. What do you think about the Red Sox? How's it going to turn out?
Well, I think it's going to be a hard series, but at the end, the Red Sox will come through. Thank you for the interview.
All right, thanks a lot.
Take care.
There you go. That was Lauren Coleman talking about all sorts of great stuff. Big thanks to Lauren Coleman for taking some time out of his busy weekend there to talk with us here on BOA Audio. Of course, you can find out more information on Lauren Coleman at the website www.cryptomundo.com, cryptomundo.com. Up next is Chris Balzano of the Massachusetts Paranormal Crossroads. Chris is a good guy, good friend of mine here in the local area. He's got quite a few books coming out in 2008, and I am definitely pegging him as one of the breakout stars in the world of esoterica in 2008. So without any further ado, here's Chris Balzano from the Mass UFO Show / Mass Monster Mash.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're here at the Mass UFO Show / Mass Monster Mash with Chris Balzano, my good friend. We had quite an adventure exploring the Bridgewater Triangle, and he's here for the weekend. He's got a lot of good stuff on the horizon coming out. For starters, Chris, talk a little bit about what you're doing here at the Mass Monster Mash, other than rubbing elbows and networking with folks like me.
I'll actually be acting as the co-host of the event. I'll be introducing Jeff Bellinger from GhostVillage.com and Karen Mossy, who's an EVP specialist, whose work has appeared in the movie White Noise and in The Ghost Whisperer, and she's, I guess you could say, almost kind of like a family friend, so I'll be introducing her as well.
Nice. Now, like I alluded to, you have a lot coming up on the horizon. You've sort of carved out quite a niche here in the Massachusetts area for your work and stuff like that, so talk a little bit about what your main specialization is, so people who are starting to get to know you can find out more.
Well, when I originally launched my website, its title was Massachusetts Ghosts and Legends, and it was really meant to kind of look at the connection between a lot of the hauntings that people were reporting, things like that, and also some of the great urban legends and legends that were coming out of the Massachusetts area. I eventually changed the name to Crossroads because I like to think that a lot of the hauntings people are experiencing and a lot of the legends people report live in that crossroads. Some of them are more legend than haunting, and some of them are more haunting than legend, but the fun is in deciding which end of the spectrum that they're on, and most of them are right there in the crossroads. So I really just began kind of reporting some of the legends I had heard and some of the hauntings I had personally experienced. And then it just kind of blossomed from there. I've been at it. I launched my website in 2001, and I've been investigating since '94. And so it's really, I've carved a niche out as a Bridgewater Triangle guy and a southeastern Massachusetts hauntings person, which is about an hour and a half away from me in Woburn. But I'm getting a lot more local stuff, and due to writing and connections that I have, working on a lot more books and material that's kind of covering all hauntings and legends across the country. So that's the exciting part of what I'm doing now, is I'm kind of expanding from just a Massachusetts person to more of a United States, and seeing the same things that we see here in Massachusetts all over the country, which all of a sudden starts to make it lean more towards the legend and urban legend side than maybe genuine hauntings.
There you go. So Balzano's taking America by storm, finally.
Yes, I've got one coming out. I actually just checked last night. I am officially listed on Amazon for a book entitled Ghostly Adventures, which takes me across the entire United States, tracking down some hauntings and some personal first-hand experiences. And then I have something else in the works, which also will be much more of a United States. But I still love the Boston stuff. I still love the Massachusetts stuff, and I'd love to be able to work on both things at the same time.
There you go. I guess talk a little bit about the Bridgewater Triangle, because like I said, you and me were running around there back in April, causing trouble and stuff like that, and hassling the cops and the tow truck drivers and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So bring people up to speed on the Bridgewater Triangle and what it's all about and your experiences exploring it.
Sure. One of the things that I did when I first started was I started to contact as many people as I could find. And part of the reason I started the website was there wasn't a lot of Massachusetts-specific stuff. This was kind of before the explosion of TAPS. So there were areas covered, like there was, the New England Paranormal Research and all that kind of stuff, but nothing Massachusetts-specific. And so I made the site and then tried to contact as many local people as possible. And one of them that I found was Chris Pittman, who actually I had worked with at a sub shop for a little while that my sister owned. And so I automatically emailed him, and reading his site, discovered this vast vortex of energy called the Bridgewater Triangle, which Chris and Lauren Coleman have written on a lot, having to do with cryptozoology and UFO reports and black helicopters. And I started kind of make the connection between that and a lot of the ghost hauntings I had, kind of starting with the red-headed hitchhiker of Route 44 and a lot of hauntings and stories mentioned in the New England Ghost Files, which were my first inspirations to go out in the field and search for something, as opposed to reporting just things that had happened to me. And so I started just to really collect a lot of ghost stories. And of course, once you collect one and you post it, then all of a sudden people begin to find you. And I started to see that the same things that were happening in terms of cryptozoology and Bigfoot sightings and Thunderbirds, there was also a heightened level of paranormal activity in terms of ghosts. So I'd really kind of focused myself on what are the ghosts. The book that I'm just finishing up now, which hopefully will be out next Halloween, is Ghosts of the Bridgewater Triangle. And that is just an account of all of these crazy stories. And if I asked, for an extension, I could probably get 20 more stories, because they seem to be coming in every day. And it's just, and I've actually expanded the Bridgewater Triangle, kind of, finding Lauren Coleman's definition excellent for what he was doing, and yet limited in terms of, well, why can't the triangle cross state lines? Yeah. Because, if you just kind of follow that natural trail, well, first of all, Rehoboth, Freetown, which is one of the apexes, Freetown was originally part of Rhode Island, or I should say Rhode Island was part of Freetown. So I just kind of hopped the fence, went over there, and I started saying, well, if you extend those lines, you've got Newport, you've got Providence. So I decided it was, and it's in the same way if you go west and if you go a little bit more towards Boston Harbor, you start seeing a little bit more. Where do you cut it off is difficult. But I've kind of expanded it to include especially southeastern towns such as Fairhaven, New Bedford, Fall River, all those towns which have probably the most documented hauntings. Rehoboth is probably the most haunted town, but really New Bedford, Fall River are probably the most haunted areas that people openly talk about the ghosts that are there. So I decided to include those as well.
Now, you say you do a lot of field type work and that kind of thing. What's some of the wild and weird stuff that's happened? Because, a lot of times when you go looking for something like that, you don't get anything, and then but then when you're driving to get milk, a ghost will cross the front of your car. So talk a little bit about, kind of weird stuff that might have happened on your explorations.
Probably the most activity that I've encountered that we've been able to document is a house in Acushnet, which is kind of an extension of New Bedford. And I've investigated there with Matt Moniz from Spooky South Coast, Tom DiAgostino, who is an author, actually with the same publisher that I am. He haunted Rhode Island, haunted New Hampshire, haunted Massachusetts, and his wife Arlene. And Mike Markowitz, who is an EVP specialist actually in Bridgewater. He's kind of in the heart of the storm. And we have gotten so much EVP evidence from there that it's the clearest EVPs I've ever heard. Constant talking. It really kind of opens this whole new idea into the paranormal, because there are seems like levels of, like, there's a hierarchy of spirits that are there that talk to one another, or there's even some that seem to discipline. So there seems to be children who make themselves very vocal, and then adults who kind of tell them to shut up. And very clearly say, they're recording this. They know all of us by name, and it seems every time we leave there that the house suffers kind of a week and a half to 2 weeks of increased activity, almost as if that's it, that's all you want to talk. Either bring in more people, or now you guys talk to us. Probably one of the oddest things from that, and I believe all the members of the family when they talk and tell me the stories, is that the tenant who lives on the second floor, who's seen most of the haunting or heard most of the haunting, he's kind of it's really at the active center of the house, kind of challenged one of the spirits. Why do you want to talk to these ghost hunters that come in, but you won't talk to me? Are you scared of me? And we had told him when we first went in there to put talcum powder as kind of a very low-tech way of monitoring things, and he went up a little while later and yes was written in the talcum powder. So whether that's true, whether he went up there and did it himself, I don't get the feeling that that's what happened. And so every time we leave there, there's increased activity. And I actually kind of get the feeling that it's maybe turned a little bit dark. That especially with the use of these children who are running up and down the stairs, something darker might be trying to gain entrance. So we're trying to get back there and do follow-ups. It's just a very difficult time of the year to do that. But the Bridgewater Triangle has this reputation of drawing negativity to it. It kind of goes hand in hand with Lauren Coleman's whole what's in a name, places that are named after the devil or variants of the devil, Fayetteville, things like that have this weird haunting aspect to him, or this weird energy aspect to him. Hockomock is also related to the devil. It's also named for the devil. And so there's this weird energy that's there. And, you can't necessarily, record it or put it in a box. But I've had several negative encounters being there. In addition to time slips I think I've experienced on Route 79, driving there late at night. One time, I called my wife to say I was on my way home. I was just leaving kind of what's officially the Triangle. She called me up 5 minutes later to say she had fallen down a flight of stairs and her leg actually had gone through glass on the bottom of the stairs. Maybe you know about this, but my car got stuck in a ditch down there. A few days later, I got a deer tick that actually traveled all the way up my belly button and had to be surgically removed by a doctor. I destroyed one car driving on Copacut Road. I just have had these things that every time I seem to go out there, whether it's for a radio show or an appearance, or whether it's just to actually do an investigation, something bad happens to me or my wife. So can you look at that and say, it's just coincidence? Okay, well, how many coincidences make a pattern? Because it seems to me, that it's we can joke about it and laugh about it, but there is something darker there, which seems to either follow you or kind of enter your life the more you investigate. And Chris Pittman can tell you that more than anyone else, because he's taken a step back because of that darkness kind of entering his life as well. So.
Scary stuff. That's some scary stuff. Now let's hit on the clown phenomenon, because I saw some stuff here on a website there with you and the clown phenomenon, and I'm dying to know, because clowns are kind of scary, and I'm afraid of where this is going to go.
Sure. In I believe it was May of '82. Or May or 81, I can't remember exactly which one it is. They're out of Boston. There started to be these weird clown reports where people dressed up as clowns were abducting children, were attacking people on the streets, were causing all this kind of all this mayhem all over the city. And there wasn't one actual single reported case, But for some reason, the Boston police actually put out a bulletin to be careful of these clowns. And Lauren Coleman reports that this was happening in several different cities, major cities in the United States at the same time, all of them with no actual reported instances. But the craze just kind of hit first Boston and then its suburbs, and I was living in Everett at the time. And I remember my cousin and I making signs that said, "Beware of the clowns," and holding them up to the cars as they went by. And I'm constantly getting emails from people saying, "I remember that. I remember we were scared about the clowns. Every time before we went out, we'd have to tell our parents, no, we will not talk to clowns." I mean, and some of the stories were just absolutely ridiculous. Of someone with a clown mask and nothing else on with machine guns and any kind of variant of scary thing, axes and chainsaws and all. And they were being reported as by little kids as well, and so these little kids were reporting it. People were connecting it because they had heard a police report about it, and so it was given more weight, and it just kind of traveled across the country. It sparked up in different places and spread across the country, and a lot of people say, Pennywise must have had something to do with it. And actually, I believe that it was probably inspired in part by this kind of clown phenomenon, because it was published after that. But what did happen was, that happened in May. In February of that same year, John Wayne Gacy was convicted and sentenced to die. And John Wayne Gacy was a killer out in Ohio, I believe, one of the Midwestern towns, who brutally raped and murdered dozens of teenage and early 20s boys, probably one of the most famous serial killers. And every time they mention him, boop, they throw up that big Pozo the Clown, or Pogo the Clown, I think is what it was. He, in his free time, would dress up as a clown and go to charity events. And I think that really that image of John Wayne Gacy as serial killer and clown stuck with people. And so when they heard these whispers, it really kind of made sense to them. Yeah, remember that guy? I heard something about that, which is how all great urban legends start. I heard something about that. And so it's not dead either, because I teach high school. And one of the, we were talking about urban legends and hauntings and things like that, which I often do in my class. And some of the kids said, "Yeah, no, actually, that's real." And I said, well, "Okay, beautiful, great." And whenever I hear that, I'm like, all right, I'm going to get another kind of add-on to the story. And he's like, "No, that's real, because in our school, which is Robert Frost Middle School, behind there's some graffiti. It's like the satanic graffiti. And all the kids, and this goes back, more than 2 decades, well, not more than, but more than 2 decades, report that there were, and still are, ghost clowns out there who abduct kids, take them out there, do all kinds of nasty things to them, and then kill them. And if you go back there, you'll either be strangled by the kids whose spirits are left there, or by the killer clowns themselves. And I spoke with a person who teaches at that school and who has been there for years. She's actually now an administrator, and she said, "Oh yeah, everyone knows that story. It's a great, all good schools have to have a good urban legend attached to them, and or a really good haunting." And I said, "Well, do you remember it before 81, 82, 83? She's like, "I really first remember it in 85, but from 85 to 2007." With different generations coming in, and more importantly, different people with different ethnic backgrounds and different immigration cycles, the story has still been kept alive, and it still rings true, because we're still scared of clowns. All schools are still haunted, and woods are scary.
Exactly.
So it's the story itself and then the variants all kind of play on all the classic things that we're scared of.
So you got the book coming out in February, so probably people can pre-order it. So how can people go about grabbing the new book? Give us the title, give us the website to pick it up, and of course plug your website.
Sure. My website is www.masscrossroads.com, and that's Massachusetts Paranormal Crossroads. And there'll be a link up to both Schiffer and Amazon and some other ways to buy the books. Right now you can pre-order Dark Woods, which is about the Freetown State Forest, and a lot of the activity there and connections, like we've been talking about, that multifaceted aspect of the triangle, by going to schifferbooks.com, or just Google Schiffer, Schiffer Books, and you can take you there. Or you can actually go to Amazon.com, and you can pre-order Ghostly Adventures, which is the one that's more about the United States. So the release date on that, according to Amazon, is July. So I was told maybe earlier than that, but that's what Amazon has it listed as.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for doing the interview and let me drag you outside to do it and all that good stuff. And once the books get rolling, get in touch with me. You live literally like 5 minutes from my house, so yeah, get in touch with me and we'll have you on the show for a full-blown super episode. A big sit down without the wind and coffee and all that good stuff interview. So hey, thanks a lot, and thanks for taking me out to the Bridgewater Triangle last year. It was a good time. And look forward to
along, Tim.
further adventures between the two of us.
Excellent, me too. So we'll talk as soon as hopefully before the books come out. So
definitely. There you go. That was Chris Balzano, folks. Keep an eye on him. He is going to be one of the big names coming to the surface in the world of esoterica in 2008. You can find out more on him at masscrossroads.com, masscrossroads.com. Up next is Don Keating to talk about the White Bigfoot and Ohio cryptozoology. After our original recording was damaged by tremendous winds as we taped it outside, Don was cool enough to sit down and talk with me this past weekend on November 11th to pretty much recapture the interview that we did at the Triple M conference. So without any further ado, here's Don Keating.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're not on location at the Mass Monster Mash Mass UFO show. We're doing a little post-show interview here with Don Keating. We actually taped one at the event, but we were really felled by some awful wind that was going on. That's the problem when you tape an interview on the outside of the building, I guess, but live and learn, I suppose. And thankfully, Don Keating has been really cool enough to sit down and talk to me here a little bit so we can do a little touch base and not excise him from the special. And Don Keating is from the Eastern Ohio Bigfoot Investigation Center. You can find them at eobic.com. Don, thanks for taking some time here to catch up from the conference.
No problem, Tim.
For starters, I guess just share with people, what you were presenting on at the conference and talk a little bit about your presentation for the folks who couldn't make it but are listening to the special to get the scoop.
All right. Well, what I did at the conference was I gave a talk on a couple of pieces of videotape that I've shot over the years. One was in August of 1992 in western Coshocton County, Ohio. This was a piece of videotape that I shot purely by accident. It's an individual walking down the road, a country road, that appears to be a rather tall, light-colored individual. And many people who have seen the videotape over the years believe it could be the image of a light-colored Sasquatch creature. In April of 1995, within a couple of hundred yards of the same location of August 92, I shot another piece of videotape. This was when 6 or 7 individuals were located in, again, western Coshocton County doing research. And this was a little longer piece of tape. The image of a light-colored individual, once again, was walking down a grass trail, and you could not only see the individual walking on the trail, but you could see the reflection of it in this body of water. And that's what I did. I basically presented those two pieces of videotape. John Horgan has been a good friend of mine for several years, and he has been very intrigued by these video clips and thought it would be interesting to have me present them to the attendees at the Mass Monster Mash, which I was more than happy to do. So that's what I did, and I've never said that these pieces of videotape ever show a Bigfoot-type creature, so to speak, because I don't know what they are, but they are quite intriguing, to say the least.
Definitely. I was stunned when I was seeing those videos at the conference. They were just amazing. Talk a little bit about the white Bigfoot, because a lot of people obviously are they're familiar with the classic Bigfoot, but I was pretty surprised that there is this white Bigfoot. And I guess talk a little bit about the white Bigfoot, how you sort of became first interested in the white Bigfoot aspect of the Bigfoot phenomenon, and how prevalent is this white Bigfoot, and share some information on that with us.
Well, I first became involved in a white Bigfoot because of a sighting that I myself had back in September of 1985. I was doing active field research at a location just south of Newcomerstown, Ohio, and since then I've done the typical research on Bigfoot encounters or Bigfoot track discoveries, but I've also had a very keen interest, more so than usual probably, in the reports of the light-colored or white-colored Sasquatch creatures, not only because of my own sighting, but because of the clips of videotape that I've shot. I think there are more light-colored creatures out there than what people tend to think. The typical description has always been a black or a dark hair-colored creature standing 7 to 9 feet tall. And because of my own sighting in '85 and then the subsequent videotapes that were shot in '92 and '95, I've just had a very keen interest in the light-colored creature, and there have been more reports of light-colored individuals than what the general public might think.
Yeah, and we kind of had a little laugh about it because I was talking about how back when I was watching the cartoons, I thought the only white Bigfoot was the abominable snowman.
Yeah.
Is this white Bigfoot, is it a geographical anomaly, you know, where it's only sort of seen in certain parts of the country, or is it sort of just run with the rest of the Bigfoot pack wherever they're found?
Well, it's not just in the Midwestern part of the U.S., but other parts of North America as well. There have been reports of light-colored creatures from all corners of North America, and that's what's very intriguing. The question has to come up, you know, is this genetic? Is it albinism? You know, is it an albino creature? Is it because they're getting old and they start to turn gray or white in color? There are several questions regarding the light-colored Sasquatch creatures that have been seen, and of course, to this point in time, we don't have any specific answers, but only to theorize and speculate as to what it may be.
And you said that you were shooting the film footage on 2 different occasions in the same areas. Now, is this like a notorious Bigfoot area for sightings in Ohio, or because I think you may be talking about the Bigfoot Triangle, right?
Right. There had been a lot of activity, track discoveries and sightings reported in these geographical locations, and in fact, it is in the midst of what is known as the Sasquatch Triangle in east central Ohio. We had been in that location for 2 or 3 years at the time. In 1992, we first started going out there in 1989, May of '89, and so we had been in the one location for just over 3 years, and that's when the videotape was shot in August of '89 or August of '92. So yeah, it's the one geographical location in Ohio is the most active. And if you take a map and you draw 3 pinpoint locations from Newcomerstown, Ohio, southwestward toward Conesville, Ohio, and then southeastward to Salt Fork State Park, Ohio, you come up with what is known today as the Sasquatch Triangle in eastern Ohio.
I'm benefiting here from hindsight because we originally did the interview before I saw your presentation. One of the things that I found really fascinating is almost a sociological sort of thing, and that's that you said you had put together sort of a group, like a meeting thing for people who were interested in looking into the Bigfoot, and you had like 35 people the first time, and then you had another meeting, and then you had 20 people, but the 20 people weren't from the original 35. Can you talk a little bit about that story and the interest that's been generated there in Ohio for your research group?
Yeah, back in July of '85, we held our first meeting. It was only going to be a one-time event. I wanted to see if people would, so to speak, come out of the woodwork so we could get some fresh reports. And those people in attendance, I said, how many would be interested in having another meeting? They all raised their hand. The funny thing, as you said, the next meeting, none of those people showed up, but there were brand new faces there. I've been holding meetings on a regular basis since July of '85, and I've been holding an annual Bigfoot conference once a year since March of 1989. And over the years, people of all professions, you know, have come to the meetings from all across North America, the conferences as well, and it's one of these things where you've had, you know, skeptics and believers alike that have come to the conference and the meetings, and you've had eyewitnesses, track discoverers, people who have heard noises and things like this. So it's something it's kind of grown on its own. It's as I say about the conference, it's a monster that has evolved on its own. And it, you know, since 1985, since I held that first meeting, I would say we've come close to having 8,000 or 9,000 attendees over the years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Like, as you say, you've been doing these meetings since for over 20 years now. How would you say the evolution of Bigfoot research in Ohio has gone in the last 20 years? Because that's quite a chunk of time. I'm sure you've seen it change over the years. What's your perspective on how it's grown and changed since the early 80s?
Well, the biggest thing, of course, is the advent of the Internet. Back in 1984, 85, when I first started Bigfoot research, there were very few groups out there in Ohio. There was only 2 or 3 groups at that point in time. And the Internet come along, and then you had Bigfoot groups, organizations popping up, just like weeds during the summer. They came out of the ground everywhere. And to a certain point in time, it was a good thing, but now I think we're kind of regressing. I think to a point, the advent of the Internet has been a deterrent, and as far as Bigfoot research is concerned. And the reason I say that is because to a certain point, you can get all kinds of hoaxers and tricksters getting onto these submission report forms on the Internet and turning in anything. And some organizations and groups, they just take it at face value and they report it to be the gospel, when in reality it may just be a load of BS. So to a point in the early and mid-'90s, the Bigfoot research in Ohio was progressing, but now I think we've kind of stagnated. I think we're at a point now where we're at a crossroads. Something major has to happen, or we're just going to continue to spin our wheels, so to speak, until something does happen.
And what do you mean major? Like a big sighting type of situation, event like that?
Yeah, you're going to have a major sighting with a number of credible eyewitnesses, or you're going to have to come up with some really good physical evidence, and as far as a really good series of tracks, some really good hair samples with DNA associated with them, or a part of or a major part of a body discovered, or something to that effect.
That's what we all want.
Exactly.
Now, let's say if you had your druthers and money was no object, how would you go about capturing the Bigfoot, or proving its existence, if you will?
Well, I would like to get to an area where a lot of activity is current, of course, and then I don't think we need to really capture one to prove it exists. If we could get some really good DNA, off of some hair that's non-matchable with anything that we know that exists, so to speak, we may be a step closer. But as far as proving without question that it exists to the scientific community and the majority of the general public, unfortunately, I think we're at a point where, something has to be brought in, something hardcore, and that hardcore, unfortunately, may have to be a part of a body.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part. It's a strange paradox with cryptozoology and Bigfoot research, in that, to prove it exists may cost us the Bigfoot in a way, because if once they take one down, that's going to bring the crazies out of the woodwork. Who are going to try and get their own Bigfoot, and it's just going to be a nightmare. I talked about that with Lauren Coleman once, and he was saying that, perhaps the best case scenario would be if one was taken down by a car or something. Like if you would hit one with a car, maybe that would be the safest way to prove it.
I agree.
We'll talk a little bit about your radio show here, the Sasquatch Triangle. How can people hear it, and, what's it all about, and all that good stuff?
The Sasquatch Triangle radio talk show airs Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Blog Talk Radio. Just go to Blog Talk Radio and enter the Sasquatch Triangle in the search box, and there you'll have the schedule come up. And, of course, whenever the show comes on live, there will be a button there to click on to listen to the show live. And there's also a chat room that you can join in on the conversation. It's becoming a little more active, of course, since winter is around the corner and more people are staying in the evenings. But it's you can, if you can't listen to it live, you can always download the shows. The show has been rather popular, actually. I'm quite surprised because I've only been hosting it since mid-May of this year, 2007, and on the average, in the past few months, we've averaged 750 downloads of every show. So. Oh, wow. Nice. That's not too bad,
That's good stuff. Yeah, that's good, especially with how many podcasts are out there nowadays and stuff. It's good to see, like, a Bigfoot-based podcast, because there's only a handful of those out there as it is.
Right.
What's coming up for you? What do you have on the horizon? Is there any materials people can get, like books or movies or stuff like that you have available, and where can people find out more information about you? Obviously, the website, eobic.com, is the Eastern Ohio Bigfoot Investigation Center, but what's coming up next for Don Keating, and what can people get from Don Keating that they want to find out more about you and from you?
Yeah, as you said, the website is the best way of doing it. Go there and you'll see several of my links, including the most recent video documentary that I did, which is available on VHS or DVD. It contains those images, those 2 video images I was speaking of earlier, and ordering information is there on the website. We've got a couple of regular meetings coming up, one on December 8th and then one in March of 2008. And then on May 17th of 2008, we will have the 20th annual Bigfoot Conference Expo located at Salt Fork State Park in East Central Ohio, which is just east of Cambridge, Ohio. And that's going to be a really good event. For the past 3+ years, we've held the conference there at Salt Fork State Park, and on the average, we've had 330 people every year show up at that conference out there at the park.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. 330 is a great number for a conference like that.
Yeah. So we're looking forward with great anticipation as to what the 20th annual conference may bring. And as far as attendees, as well as speakers, we might have a couple of surprises up our sleeve, and we're going to have to wait and see how things progress during the winter months. But we could have a couple of very major speakers.
Awesome. Sounds great. People can stay tuned to the eobic.com website for more information on that, I presume, right?
Definitely.
Awesome. Sounds great. Hey, Don, thank you so much for taking some time here to catch up with me since the conference and being so accommodating and everything in light of the technical difficulties. I really appreciate it. You're a stand-up guy. I'm really psyched to have met you, and hopefully this is just the beginning of future adventures and fun stuff like that for both of us.
Well, it sounds good, Tim. It was a pleasure to meet you in Watertown, Mass., and looking forward to possible future meetings with you. We may be over there next year for John's 3rd annual Mass Monster Mash, and if we are, hope to cross your path once again.
Absolutely. There you go, folks. That was Don Keating. Big thanks to Don for being so understanding about the technical difficulties and taking some time to re-record the interview. You can find out more on Don at www.eobic.com. Check it out.